Long time no speak, long time no see. I wasn't prepared. No one told me. So, what's going on, everyone? This is a little bit of Lindsay. I don't know what episode we're on. It's been like maybe a month, 2 months. It's probably been 2 months. Yeah, I am working on consistency 1 month at a time. So anyways, on this episode, I want to talk about moving to Atlanta. Ta-da! Moving to Atlanta. And originally I moved to Atlanta for a job, and quitting that job. I'm probably gonna have to break this up into 2 different parts because it's gonna get really long. But I had to quit my job because my mental health was at stake. I started questioning things that I've never questioned before. I was looking in the mirror. I didn't know who I was looking at. I wasn't seeing. I felt like core parts of who I was like had left me, or like there were parts of me that were deteriorating and I just wasn't myself. And I think that in the workplace, you should be able to show up as your best self. And I was not my best. And it was kind of heartbreaking because I went into it thinking like, oh, like I'm going to be able to make an impact in people's lives. I'm going to be able to be committed and dedicated, and we're going to have fun. Like I went into it like that, like your favorite summer camp counselor that you will always remember, that was always lit, always smiling, happy, team building. Like I'm that person. And that person started to become non-existent. And so that's when I knew that it was, let me sit back. I knew that it was time for me to leave. It was time for me to get up out of there. So my job was, my housing was attached to my job, which means that I lived where I work. So it wasn't like a work from home. It was like you living your work, or like I don't know how to explain it. I was the assistant director over a building. I'm going to try not to be specific because I'm not trying to slander this specific institution or anyone who works there. This is just my personal experience. I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful to the institution and or anyone who worked there. I'm not trying to do that. I'm sharing my experience because it's my YouTube channel, period. I was the assistant director over a building, and I lived in the building that I worked in. So I had a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Atlanta, was not paying rent for it. I didn't have to pay for utilities, amenities, or nothing like that. So it sounds great. It sounds amazing, because what job could you get where you don't have to pay rent? You have a 2-bedroom apartment living in a major metropolitan area, downtown, midtown, and not paying rent. That's like non-existent. People would be like, girl, how did you get this job? But I wasn't paying rent financially, right? But I was paying rent with my mental health. So that really taught me that nothing in this life is free. You are going to pay with something: money, time, mental health, energy, whatever. Nothing in this world is free. So you have to figure out what is too expensive and what you can afford. And my mental health is something that I couldn't afford to pay with. Not for a job. I couldn't do it. So I live where I work where I live, yada, yada, yada. Which also means that I can't escape my work. So I would wake up in the morning, leave my apartment, and it would probably take me, if I was walking extremely, extremely, extremely slow, which most days I was because I did not want to go to work, it would probably take me like a minute to get to my office. Like I literally lived in the building where I worked on the 1st floor. So that made it really hard to like escape work. Most people, I don't even know nowadays, but I feel like when you go to work, you should be able to work and then leave. Like you shouldn't take work home with you. I don't think that's good for anyone's health, especially if you don't like your job. So I wasn't able to escape my job, and I didn't like my job. So I felt like I was kind of like trapped in my own apartment. Because my apartment and like my apartment is supposed to be like my sanctuary, my home, my place of peace, my place where I relax, and like, you know, get myself together and feel good. But because it was literally inside of the building, I just didn't feel that. And I also felt like, and I don't think that this institution was doing this on purpose, but I also felt like because I wasn't paying rent, like that was kind of like hung over my head, like not explicitly, but it was like, oh, well, I don't like this job and it's stressing me out, but at least I don't have to pay rent. You know, it's like almost like toxic positivity. And that just started, that really bothered me. It's like, oh, I would try to. Okay, so I had to take a break and like redo something because I didn't have enough storage. But anyways, let me set this back up. Okay, so yeah, I felt like me not having to pay rent was being like hung over my head a little bit, and it started to affect, so me not liking my job started to affect my relationships with my friends, because I would tell them how much I didn't like my job. Again, I'm gonna try my best to explain what was happening to me, but it is really one of those situations where you would have to really be in my position or be one of my coworkers at the time to understand what I was going through, because it is very, very hard for me not to explain it. I also don't want to be super specific to protect the identities of people I used to work with and the institution. I just don't want that type of drama. But yeah, so I would tell my friends how much I didn't like my job, and they would be like, oh, but you don't have to pay rent. And it's like, I don't have to pay rent financially, but I'm suffering. And as my friend, you shouldn't want me to suffer. But I also understand that they don't get it. They don't get it. Because they would ask me, like, can it really be that bad if you're not paying rent? Like, everything was just about money and how I didn't have to pay rent. And that just kind of made me not want to talk to my friends about what I was going through. So then I didn't talk to anyone about it. So now I was unhappy, I was stressed out, and I was suffering internally. And I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to. Really bad situation. I think that I did go through depression while I was there. And there were days where I felt very, very, very helpless. And whenever me and my supervisor would have like check-ins, my supervisor at the time also made our talks a very developmental, very safe place, very brave space, like all of the things they teach you in those DEI sessions, diversity, equity, inclusion. That was real country. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Everything they teach people in those sessions, my supervisor did that for me and beyond. And I was very lucky in that aspect, because some of my other coworkers at the time, I'm like, I don't know how you're still here. But moving forward, every time we would do our mental health check-ins, my supervisor at the time would always ask me, you know, how are you feeling? Like, what's going on? And I would always say, I'm just trying to make it till Friday. That is my most honest, that was me showing up as my most authentic self. I'm just trying to make it to Friday at 5 p.m. That's what I'm just trying to do. I'm literally in robot mode on autopilot. I'm just trying to make it. Barely. And I was barely making it, honestly, but I'm just trying to make it. I also, during this time, I started running, and running really gave me an outlet to decompress, because I was away from my apartment, which means I was away from my job. And I got to meet people and talk to them. And some of the people that I talked to, my running clothes were like, yeah, girl, quit. And I was like, well, how am I going to afford? How am I going to, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not from here. I don't live here. I'm not from Atlanta. And they were like, yeah, but it's not worth it. Like, quit. Like, just quit. Like, during the pandemic, so many people quit their jobs and they like figured it out. And I do think that a part of quitting your job and being able to figure it out does come with privilege, because everyone cannot do that. Like, everyone cannot just hate their job and just quit. Everyone cannot do that. And I'll talk about the process of quitting my job and, what I was going through at that time in another video. A lot of things that I didn't like about this job were not intentional, but they were my negative experience was collateral to a system that was failing not only the individuals that the institution was created for, but its employees as well. Why am I stuttering? Get it together. Because I felt like we were all just collateral damage to a system that was no longer working. So yes, checking in, things taking forever to do. I would have one task in the morning that would take me like an hour and a half. And during that hour and a half, I would have people coming into my office asking me questions, trying to get things done. And there was no relief. There was no relief. This one particular shift that everyone had to do called duty. And duty was 7 days from Wednesday to Wednesday. And it was 24 hours. You were on call for 24 hours. Or at least like that 8 to 5 period, like during the day, you were at your regular like office. But after like 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., you were on call. So if I got a phone call at 2 a.m. from the police that someone was being abused, domestic abuse, suicide attempts, trigger warning, suicide attempts, sexual assault, battery, physical battery, violence, drug overdoses, alcohol poisoning by legal adults and minors. Therapy is much needed. And I feel like that is something that I like didn't receive. It was kind of like, I would ask people like, how are you doing this? How are you mentally and emotionally? How are you dealing with this? How are you balancing this with your personal life and with us seeing the things that we are seeing? Like, how is your psycho-emotional state? And they would be like, yeah, like you just like deal with it like it happens, like it's normal. Like, no, like that's not normal. Me seeing someone pass out from a drug overdose in the street at 19, 20 years old is not normal. Nothing about that should be normal. And so I just felt helpless. And hopeless and all of the things. And it was just bad. And I would see that and I would have to go back to work the next morning. Or I would see worse and I'd have to go back to work the next morning. Ooh. And then there was, the beginning of the year where people were moving into the building. Very unorganized, very high stress. We got people moved in, but it was in my opinion, it was very unsuccessful. It was very unsuccessful. I know that a lot of this is out of order, and I may or may have not articulated everything, which is why I'm going to make multiple parts. But I think we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it right here for right now. Stay tuned for part 2 if you can take it. I'm glad I could make this video and like share this with all of you. I'm not sure why I'm stuttering. It could be because I have anxiety about this whole work situation. But ultimately I quit because I couldn't do it anymore. And I just didn't feel supported. I did not feel supported. And I think that people were asking me, how can I support you? But the only way to support me was to just like, let me go at that point. And I don't know if that sounds shady or not, but that really was, I was still figuring out how to support myself. So it was a lot going on. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, share, do all of the things. And yeah, I will see y'all next time.